Well, shoot. If you're new, my name is Max, and for the past 6 months, I have been turning this box van into a tiny home on wheels. One of the biggest problems I've had to deal with is the leaks, water getting inside the van. I've tried 2 times now to reseal the van, but unfortunately, we had a big rainstorm earlier this week, and I found a few new leaks. As frustrating as this was, I would much rather learn about it now than later down the road when I am farther into the interior build. Today we are going to try and reseal this van for the 3rd time now and see if we can keep all of that water out. Thanks for tuning into this video, and let's go ahead and get started. So the main area that is still leaking is right up here in the front where this wind deflector connects to the rest of the box. I'm pretty sure this is a common leak point on these box vans. I've tried to seal it a couple of times now. I thought I had sealed it off well enough that it would hold, but after this rainstorm, it was clear that water was still getting through. All right, so step 1, we need to remove all of the old sealant. In my most recent attempt to reseal this front corner of the van, I took a bunch of Sikaflex 221 and covered this entire corner with the sealant. Now when I did this, I didn't remove any of the old sealant underneath, the sealant that came with the van from the factory. I think some water was able to sneak past that layer of Sikaflex I had made, and once it got past the Sikaflex to the old dried and cracked sealant underneath, it was able to go through and get inside the van. In order to remove this outside layer of Sikaflex, I took my heat gun and a putty knife. Using a heat gun helps a lot when it comes to removing old sealant, and actually this process ended up being a lot quicker and easier than I had imagined. Pretty much just trying to get off all of this old sealant that I applied, and thankfully the heat gun is helping a ton with this. So after removing most of the Sikaflex that I had applied, the next step was to remove the factory sealant that was there when I bought the van. I'm not sure exactly what type of sealant they used for this, but it was a lot harder to remove. I just removed this big white cap here, which is just a bunch of sealant. I'll show you pictures of what I'm talking about here to help you better understand. The first time I was sealing these corners, I wasn't really sure what this cap was. I wasn't sure if it was something structural, so I just ended up leaving it. Well, after removing it here now, I have a much better understanding of why water was leaking through here. There is a pretty decently sized gap here, and I'm thinking that this old patch of sealant that was on there was just worn out. And since I didn't remove it and reseal the insides, water was still just finding its way through. As for some of this old Sikaflex that I kind of smeared everywhere onto the metal frame, I am going to take a drill with a wire brush and just kind of see if I can gently clean it off and just make this whole area look a little bit better. So now that I've got most of the sealant cleaned from the outside, I've come to the inside of the van. This corner here, this is the spot that's leaking, and I am going to work on removing as much of that old sealant as I can so that we can get this area nice and clean for a fresh start. I had previously covered this entire inside area with sealant, thinking it would act as an interior barrier keeping water out. Well, during the rainstorm, I learned that was definitely not the case. If there is any form of small gap or crack on the exterior, water is going to find its way through. Even a big glob of sealant on the inside isn't going to stop that. Again, the goal with these front corners was a fresh start, removing everything, cleaning it up, and starting the repairs from scratch. When it comes to resealing a van, I've learned that if there's any old sealant that's leaking, it has got to go. Just resealing over it or adding more sealant doesn't usually work. So it looks like we have this big kind of rubber stopper here that's helping to fill this gap, and I'm gonna try and push this out of here. Oh my gosh, yeah. So I think this was definitely our problem. This was where all of that water was coming in. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see how this could be a potential leak spot in the van. And after removing all of that old sealant, I can see why I had some leaks coming through this area. Now, during the past rainstorms that we had, I actually only had leaks on one side of the van. But while I'm in here, while I'm doing some repairs, I think it's probably for the best to do the same thing on the other side as well. So before we move on to patching and resealing these holes, I'm going to remove all of the old sealant on the other side so that we can do the exact same repair. I was debating whether or not to repair the driver's side. If it wasn't currently leaking, why mess with it? But having the old dried and cracked sealant underneath my Sikaflex layer still concerned me. If the passenger side was leaking in just a few short months, I figured it was only a matter of time before the same thing happened on the driver's side. So for my peace of mind, I decided to repair both sides. With the sealant removed on both sides, it was time to start the repairs. It took some time and research to figure out how I was going to go about filling these new holes, but I eventually came up with a plan and got to work. These holes were far too big to just fill with sealant, so I needed something I could cut to shape and fit in there to cover most of the gap. My plan for resealing it is to make these little cutouts using some ACM panel. Now, if you guys watched the video where I rebuilt the back wall, I used ACM, it stands for aluminum composite material, and I used that as the exterior surface. It's just nice and weatherproof, pretty durable, light, easy to cut, and my plan is to kind of make these little caps that will go right on the ends there, and then we will seal everything around there, kind of closing off this gap. Next, we are going to make 4 cutouts in this shape to kind of fit in that corner. We're going to do 4 so that we have 2 on each side. We'll kind of have an inside and outside layer. And the only reason I'm thinking of doing that is just so we kind of have a backup in case water finds its way past the first layer. So why use ACM? Well, I picked this for a few reasons. First of all, I needed something weather resistant. As great as wood can be for building certain things, it's not the most durable option when exposed to weather like rain and snow. ACM being an aluminum composite material won't rot or decay like wood. And since this was an area where water had been pooling up and leaking, I needed something that was designed to get wet. Second, I needed something strong. When I removed all the old sealant, I found a metal support helping to hold the fiberglass wind deflector up. Now the fiberglass is super strong and barely moves with pressure, but I also wanted to make sure it wouldn't slowly collapse in on itself. So the ACM will not only be used to fill the hole, but also to help support the fiberglass. The final reason I chose ACM is simply because it's super easy to work with. I'd say it's just about as easy as working with plywood, and you can easily cut out custom shapes with a jigsaw. The only downside is that ACM is just a little bit more expensive. Alright, sorry, it's kind of hard to show this, but I just finished cutting out these caps here. So we'll mount one on the inside and attach it in place like that, and then we'll seal all around the corners, and then we'll go to the outside of the van, attach a second kind of cap here on the outside, and then we'll have a double layer system. With the ACM cutouts made, it was time to get them attached and start the process of resealing these front corners. I am going to be using Sikaflex 252. This is a little bit different than 221, which I've used a lot on my van build. 252 is more of an adhesive, not a sealant, so it's designed for connecting things together. So we'll use the 252 to hold the ACM piece in place, and then we'll go back once the 252 dries and use a sealant to actually seal it off. Now, I have heard a lot about properly cleaning an area before applying Sikaflex, and to be honest, I have not done a great job of this in the past. But since this is a place that I've had leaks a couple times now, I went and picked up some 99% isopropyl alcohol, and we are going to use this to get this surface nice and clean and make sure we give the Sikaflex 252 the best chance to adhere and hold the ACM cap in place. My plan was to build the interior layer first, get it attached and fully sealed before moving to the second exterior cap. Before doing any type of sealing or waterproofing, the goal was to get the ACM cap attached. I applied a heavy bead of Sika 252 around the interior and then clamped it in place. Before I could add an additional layer of sealant, I had to let the Sika cure. So I left everything clamped overnight and came back to it the next day. So yesterday we installed the first layer, the first kind of cap to this hole in the corner of the van here. Well, today we are going to start by removing these clamps, taking a look and making sure that Sikaflex adhered. So the Sikaflex seemed to form a pretty strong bond. The ACM cap seemed secure, and since everything was dry, I was ready to move on to the sealing and weatherproofing. First impressions, it feels like it's pretty secure in there. I wanted to build the first interior cap as if it was the exterior layer. That way, if water ever got past the second exterior cap, the interior wall would still be sealed well enough to hopefully keep it out. Here is a look at the first cap we did. All of that sealant you see there, that is just Sikaflex 252. Again, that is what we used to attach that cap. And now I'm going to take some, let me grab it here. Now we're going to take some Sikaflex 221. This is more of a sealant. 252 is more of an adhesive. We're going to take this and add some sealant around these edges as well to help weatherproof it. Once that dries, we'll take the second cap and kind of close all of this off. Now, I am not exactly sure how well the Sikaflex is going to adhere to the ACM. I didn't really think about that, but some of the 252 was peeling off a little bit up there. All right, so basically what I'm going to do here is apply some Sikaflex to the ACM with the painted finish, and then apply some to the area that we sanded, kind of scraped off that outside layer. We'll let that sit, and then we'll test and see if the Sikaflex adheres better to the sanded version. Got our two pieces. We will let this sit and we'll come back to this in a bit. During that rainstorm, the other area I found a leak was somehow coming through the top of this door. I don't know exactly where. I was looking at the Sikaflex up here and honestly it looks pretty good, but because there was some water coming through here, I am just going to add a little more Sikaflex along the top of this door here and see if that does the trick. I think I'm starting to realize how good water is at getting into vans. Even using the best sealants out there isn't a guaranteed way to stop leaks. I've spent so much time sealing and resealing things on this van, and the entire process has been a struggle. As discouraging as it is to find new leaks, it's part of the process of building and converting a van. And every time you find a new leak, you also find a new way to improve and make the next version better. Now we're going to come back to this ACM panel that we tested some Sikaflex on yesterday. If you guys remember, I sanded one section with some 180 grit sandpaper, and then I left the other side as is with the white finish. Let's go ahead and start with the side I didn't do anything to. Okay, see, this is what I was thinking, guys. Look at this. I can just peel the Sikaflex right off, just like that. It pretty much did not stick at all. Now let's check the sanded side, and I'm super curious to see if this sticks better. No way. Wow, that is so interesting. Okay, we are definitely going to be sanding down the outside ACM caps because that makes an insane difference. That is amazing. After our little test, I learned that the Sikaflex works way better when you rough the ACM up with sandpaper first. So I sanded down the two exterior caps and got started attaching them to the van. It was the exact same process to attach the two exterior caps. Sikaflex 252 to hold it in place, and then Sikaflex 221 to seal everything off. So here is the final layer. This is just some Sikaflex 221 that I applied here. I did my best to smooth it out, but if you've ever used Sikaflex 221, you'll know that it is super thick and sticky, and this was about the best I could do. So we have a double layer system now with the ACM panels, and those are attached with the 252 Sikaflex and then 221 sealing it. And that is kind of the final result here for my attempt to close off and reseal these gaps in the box fan. Now I know you guys are probably wondering, does the van still leak? Well, unfortunately, I don't have a great way to test it right now. I don't have hose hookups at this house I'm renting. So for now, my plan is to pretty much wait until the next big rainstorm. But I will definitely give you guys updates as soon as I find out more. But with that being said, I feel pretty confident with this new system that we've designed. I have spent so much time on this van build just trying to get everything resealed and keep water out of the van. And unfortunately, I think that is just part of the reality of owning a van. And I'm definitely learning that now. And that is going to wrap it up for today's video of resealing the van. I hope you guys found this one interesting. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It's a completely free way to help support my channel and the van build, and I really do appreciate it. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next part.